Okay, so we're gonna do another live, and it's just, I just can't believe we're doing this right now. That this is this, and it's just, I just can't believe we're doing this right now. That this is the state. And Rachel, who's a healer, she's a Reiki healer. She is incredible. When she comes on, please follow her. I'm going to be reading some posts. One person is asking to be anonymous, which I don't blame them, and then I'll read that. And Rachel, let me go ahead and invite you. Invitation sent. Hopefully you get this. And let's wait for people to get on. So please share the live. Hi, how are you, Rachel?
I'm good, Tony. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on and kind of keep. Tell us where you are.
So I'm in the Appalachia part of West Virginia.
Okay, great. And what are you picking up? I'm going to read some of the things you posted, if that's okay. Let me know. Let's wait for more people to come. If you could share this live. The first live I did, we shared phone numbers of this helicopter pilot, Terry, and I'm uploading that on my YouTube channel. And what are the news? And I'm going to read these posts because it's pretty serious. So what's the mood? What are you picking up on?
Well, I hate to go into this type of mentality, but I mean, I love the one post I saw where I think it was the first one I sent where they had said that it was time to start a militia, that the American people needed to start getting involved to kind of counteract what the government is doing. And I have to agree with that. Mm-hmm. You know, violence, I never want to say that violence is the answer. And maybe we don't need that. It might just be that we need that stronghold to hold the line as patriots and say, we're not going to tolerate this anymore.
Yeah. Well, let me read to you. Again, I'm not going to read. This person asked to remain anonymous. It says, prayers for the 82nd of North Carolina. This is madness. It says, I'm in the 82nd station in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We have guys in our unit with family in Western North Carolina. They're trying to get to their family. Guys who are asking to put in passes to go help any way they can. They're all getting no. Meanwhile, we got briefed that we have to be on standby in case we need to support the Middle East. The people stuck need to know that we're trying, but we are trying, but our higher ups aren't allowing it. Response to whoever read this says, Jesus, Lord, have mercy. So I know you can't actually say anything because that was whoever read this says, Jesus, Lord, have mercy. So I know you can't actually say anything because that was whoever read this says, Jesus, Lord, have mercy. So I know you can't actually say anything because that was whoever read this says, Jesus, Lord, have mercy. So I know you can't actually say anything because that was whoever read this says, Jesus, Lord, have mercy. So I know you can't actually say anything because that was whoever read this says, Jesus, Lord, have mercy. So I know you can't. Put yourself on mute, Rachel. Thanks. Okay. So yeah, that's going to end that. So the next letter, I'm going to read it and then I'm going to put myself on mute. We'll see how that works. Okay. Again, I'm not going to say his name only just in case. A comrade in arms of mine and fellow OIF vet came up on the net, and thanks to Starlink and Elon Musk, was able to let me know that he and his family are alive, but things are getting really bad, really quick. He's a fellow multiple tour Iraq vet and is not prone to exaggeration. He's in North Carolina, and here's his first update. This entire area is a war zone, even if not directly destroyed by floodwaters. There are men, women, and children starving without water and sanitation, no fuel. People can't get to any distro points because they have no fuel. People are walking on foot and dragging wagons. The majority of federal and state assets are being diverted to the incorporated areas of Asheville, Black Mountain, etc., and without a deliberate effort yet into the rural, unincorporated areas. People are suffering, and communities are rapidly moving to isolation and self-defense. Okay, Rachel, I'm going to put myself on mute if I can. I'm going to figure out how to do it. But go ahead, tell me what you think. What's going on?
So I want to touch base on the 82nd Airborne because I actually had a friend out there that lived in that area a couple years ago. She's not there anymore, and I can't, to be blunt, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. I know that they had a lot of crazy things happening during the pandemic, where they were forced to make choices that hurt their families. And so I unfortunately I can't say that I'm surprised, and it's under the same administration that we're under now. And I think what they need, what I wish that our military would do is take a stand against their government. This is the only way I see things making a change. They have to. I don't see it changing any other way. The same way they did with the pandemic when they were being, forced cupcaked. As I don't want them to block either one of us on here, but is the same way that they're going to have to make a choice now. You know what I mean? Do I say no to my leaders and go and help our people, or do I say, let me turn my back on my people, the people that I joined the military to protect, and let them send me overseas? It's a hard decision for them. So I really wanted to touch base on that because I can't imagine that type of having to make that type of choice.
I'm going to jump in. I actually can tell you that type of choice. When 9/11 happened, there were people in the towers calling their bosses, waiting for a return call to ask that they could leave. That kind of empathy, I'm sorry, God bless their souls. But you know what? There's a point where you have to make a decision for your family and all hell. That's it. I remember my brother was actually training for the Navy SEALs, okay? When he found out that his son was being birthed, he went AWOL. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Sometimes there are moments you will never regret doing. And I'm not saying go AWOL to you. You guys do whatever the hell you want. But there's a point where when you're a man, you make decisions based on what is the most important thing to make. It's not that hard, because we just read that it's a choice between them helping their own family and they're denied, or going to the Middle East. I'm sorry. Okay, this whole October thing that happened last year could have stopped if we had real diplomats, real politicians, real ambassadors. It should have ended within a week. I don't give a shit what you guys think, but Jimmy Carter would have stopped that. Trump would have stopped that, because they're all about, Trump wants to make money, not war. And you might say, well, people make a lot of money through war. Trump would have never done that. Within a week to two, it would have been done. And this has been dragging on, and now they want to expand it into other countries that had nothing to do with this. So you got these poor fathers and sons and brothers who are now being asked to. Can you imagine? I would lose my mind if I was being airlifted to the Middle East while my family's somewhere lost in the mountains of the Appalachians. What do you think? Is it really that hard to make a decision?
No, I'm with you. I mean, family first, and you were talking about that yesterday. It should always be your children before the government, before greedy corporations, and they all tie into each other. We all know that it's the greedy 1% that's starting these wars. They're funding these wars. They're embezzling the money, and I keep seeing posts and comments that they can't launder and embezzle money to North Carolina, but they can do that to Ukraine. They can do that to Israel, and all the other countries that the taxpayers' dollars are going to right now.
Yeah, yeah. But don't say that word. Call it the blue and white team. I'm not joking. Because anything that we say, Candace Owen talks about that all the time, how, anything we say, if we actually directly say, suddenly we become anti, So, this is not a anti, it's called anti-geno. We're anti-geno. It's that simple. And we're anti-propaganda. I personally probably think that if what's happening, because I know for a fact, I don't know how I know, but I feel the energy of some of these men in that Fayetteville who are probably going into being sent to the barracks because they're trying to, you know what I'm saying? I don't think everyone's that complacent and that docile. They're not trained to be docile to go into battle for other countries. Why in the hell would they be docile for their own kin? So I feel as if probably some of them are being thrown in the barracks. They already know who, they've identified who's a rebel. And that's why it's going to be difficult. It's not so much that it's going to be a difficult choice. I think some of them are a very major choice, and they're going to be prevented. And that's heartbreaking. I don't know why they would do that to these men, and women who are serving our country. What exactly do you think on a spiritual level we're being tested? Like, what is the lesson here for many of people that are coming in who may not know, our spiritual values and how we see things? But what do you think would be a takeaway to a person that's, any kind of Judeo-Christian, I'm going to say Muslim religion that may not be able to wrap their head about our spiritual values? How can we help them understand what the big picture is on this particular situation? What do you think is the takeaway?
A unity. I think that the number one thing is unity. It's the different groups and belief systems coming together to save this country, and not just this country, but people at one point, they probably don't anymore, used to look to this country as the rebels, as the people who were gonna come in and help other people and be the saviors, right? But I think it's time that we take this country back and be those people again. But if I had one word and one takeaway, it would be unity. It doesn't matter what diverse opinions and belief systems that we have got to come together and find a common ground. And if we can't do that to save this country and save these people that are in this one area, because it's not just North Carolina, there's Tennessee, there's Georgia, there's Alabama. Now North Carolina is being the most, I think, broadcasted, but Trump was actually in Georgia, and that's devastating too. And it's the unity. It's the American people need to come together and realize that the time to shine is now. And if we don't do it now, then, I fear that we will never do it.
And this is where your skin color really better not matter. You better realize the 1% don't care about your skin color, and they've been using it to divide and conquer. This is a time with the Hopi prophecy. I'm about to read it to you. The Hopi prophecy of the Rainbow Warriors is about a time when a new group of people will come to Earth to restore the planet after it has been ravaged by human greed and disrespect. Shall I repeat that? Because I think I will. The Hopi prophecy of the Rainbow Warriors is about a time when a new group of people will come to Earth to restore the planet after it's been ravaged by human greed and disrespect. The prophecy: a time will come when the earth will be in devastation with black skies and waters, brown and dying plants, and disappearing animals and birds. A new group of people will come from many different backgrounds. Did you hear that? Backgrounds. To make earth green again. They will be called the Rainbow Warriors because they will bring together the 4 races. Did you hear that? Races of humanity to live in peace. The message. The prophecy speaks to issues of the environment, peace, racism, inclusiveness. It conveys a message of love, acceptance, and joy. The rainbow symbolizes, and let's not go rainbow woke, okay? We're talking about rainbow Hopi prophecy. There's a difference between being awakened and woke. Like, don't get confused with those two meanings. They're completely different. The rainbow symbolizes the 4 sacred directions and the 4 races of humanity. The diversity of energy in the rainbow is expressed in wavelengths of colors. Why is this important? Because as long as you continue playing the 1% on the divide and conquer, you will not make it. You will not make it individually, and you will not make it collectively. Once you unify, you win. Game over with the 1%. Game over. Right? What are your thoughts on that?
And you notice that the main focus in the division tactic, at least in this country, is the racism.
Yes.
And it's not just the racism against Black people; it's racism against the Middle Eastern people. That when 9/11 happened, they're making everyone afraid of that particular Middle East. It's making people hate, and we talked about this earlier, making people hate the South Americans, the Mexicans coming across the border. It's that type of divide and conquer. It's not just racism against one specific group of peoples. It's racism across the board to divide people, to make you, instead of hating the people causing the division, you're hating each other.
Yeah. But we have to be honest, okay? A lot of these places have released the worst of of these examples, and Kamala Harris and her cohorts have literally airlifted 500,000 people and dropped in the Midwest to create chaos, to create distractions from the effery that's going on right now within the chambers of Congress, giving standing ovation and kissing BB's ass while he directs traffic as to where our money's going. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think you said it perfectly, and I wholeheartedly agree. I really do. And there's so many distractions too. It's so many things happening at one time, and you know, how do we sit here and focus on one thing, because it's so much, right? You've got that happening, you've got the Venezuela thing happening, you've got the whole Diddy thing happening. Now you have this hurricane coming in and happening. You've got the blue and white causing, you know, WARS in the Middle East or in Lebanon. And so it's hard. How do we focus on one thing? Where do we start?
Well, we have to start with our own level of integrity. We have to start with our own level of integrity and realizing that we've lost the plot. We've lost the plot. Now, I am not a Christian. This is not to say that I don't respect you. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a Buddhist. I'm not a Jewish. But what I will say to you is, if you're going to take religion out of a school, right, you better teach philosophy. And what I'm realizing is that now we have people who can't figure out what's the next move because they haven't been taught how to actually think outside the box. The normal that built this country was based on individuals that thought outside the box. That's why the T-tax drove them. I mean, basically, that was it. And yet we have now taken on kicks in the chins. You know, we've had boots on our throats. We've been played like violins, and we have been taught not to think, so that we don't know what to do next. And so the first thing we need to do, in my humble opinion, is to unite as one people against the 1%. That's it. That's that. Meanwhile, some of the decisions that are immediate about the Appalachian Mountains and the resources. I did a live earlier about 2 hours ago where we talked about that. Rachel, you were there, and we talked about the massive amounts of resources. There's a reason why this was by design. In fact, people are scratching their heads. Am I correct? Do you guys get hurricanes to this level? Is this your normal? I know some parts of the Midwest, hurricanes are their normal. I know that in Florida, when I lived there, they were tornadoes and shit like that. Is that your normal in the Appalachian Mountains, or was this an anomaly? Was this like a freak moment?
No, and at least where I'm at, not happening. I mean, we get like remnants of hurricane weather, nothing to this level. Like, and we had a storm come through back in, I want to say it was like July, beginning of August. It actually knocked a tree down onto we had a tree fall on our neighbor's house, and we actually had a tree fall on another house down the street, and the woman actually did pass away from the tree falling on the house. But nothing to this devastation. Like, it just is not normal. And if you ask me, it's all was premeditated. I think it was all premeditated and done purposely, especially when you find out the resources that they have there. And actually, I was told, I met with a group of women last week who had actually said that there's a theory, and I don't know the truth behind this. Anyone could, fact check me, but that the Appalachian Mountains are actually older than the other mountain ridges that we have, such as the Rockies. And it begs the question of what other resources are there. What's the energetic history within the Appalachian Mountains that we might not even be aware of?
Well, I mean, this guy called, I'm trying to remember his name again, but I did it in my last live. Justin, the father dog, or something like that. And he broke down, he's in California. There are massive, lots of mines. There's lithium there's permits actually already on September 24th. They were actually applying for permits. I'm not going to say the company again. Okay, it's on my last live on my YouTube channel if you want to hear that. Because again, I'm trying to be careful. We have to be, unfortunately, because we say anything and some troll or the algorithm will pull the live on the spot. So with that said, they were applying for permits on September 24th, the powers that be, to mine lithium. So there's cobalt. We know what cobalt is and what we use it for, right? It's one of the issues in the Congo. Okay, so they've got cobalt, they've got natural gas, they've got oil, they've got gemstones, they've got gold, they've got ginseng, for Christ's sake. They've got shit that I can't even understand with all that wealth. It's very much like Africa. There's all this wealth and all this poverty, and the Appalachians had all this wealth. I don't know how they started figuring it out. But my son looked up that the local Appalachians were outlawed to actually what is the word, grab wild ginseng, which if you buy ginseng, it's like something like $1,200 to $1,500 a pound because it takes 20 to 40 years to develop. Why do we have poverty in areas where there's so much wealth inherently in the mountains of the Appalachians? So now we know why they would create these storms. And did they create these storms? Well, I was in California in 2022 and we did have a hurricane. Now, I've lived in California off and on since I was 14. We have never had a hurricane ever. You could say global warming. I would say no. We've got too many seeding of clouds and all kinds of manipulation of the weather. We already know. I hope you guys know that because it's not a tinfoil theory. It's fucking a fact. But anyway, suddenly we had a hurricane that lasted 2 days. I'd never seen that in my life. And trees, literally, huge trees, literally toppled over everywhere in California. It actually became a tax. We were given an extension to do our taxes because it was an emergency. It was flagged as the whole state of California. So my point is, it came out of nowhere and never again. So when you're in Kansas, I expect hurricanes, right? I expect tornadoes. I expect, in California, I expect earthquakes, right? But suddenly we were having weather that didn't match where we were living. So I find it interesting that suddenly up in the highest peak, you've got flooding. Does that make sense to you? Because how the fuck would this happen? Are there dams up there? That was a dam open or broken, or what do you think exactly happened?
Yeah, the dam's broken. And I mentioned this before because my husband made a good point of, the way that they what's the word I'm looking for? The way that they specifically place these dams and where they put them gives them, sure, it could help, right? And I think we talked about this. It obviously is meant to help, but in the hands of the wrong people, it could devastate a particular area should they want it to. So
Right.
I think it's definitely a possibility. And I don't think we've ever been to that part. We've never driven through Asheville. Ironically, we were contemplating it when we went into Tennessee. Now we've gone to Tennessee, and they get a lot of flooding. I mean, a devastating amount of flooding in like Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area. And I am wondering if it's a similar build to what I've seen there, where it floods a lot. But for me, if you were to ask me, I just think it's very,
It's very sus.
yes, it's very suspicious.
So let me ask you this. So if you know that there's a state that has these kinds of catastrophes pretty much you can clock it every year. Why don't they have an organized system that is like a well-oiled machine to, like, they have plan A, plan B, you know what I mean? Where they go, okay, helicopters up. Okay, when we have forest fires, when I lived in California, they had a plan. And they would actually airlift guys out of Arizona, out of Colorado to come and help the forest fires in California. We know this, right? and in Malibu and all these forest regions and so forth. And it was like clockwork. They knew exactly what to do. They knew exactly, and within like less than 12 hours, they were on the other side in California from across the country helping firefighters. So what I don't understand is why they know this can happen and they're never fucking prepared. How is this normal? Can you what are your thoughts? What do your husband think? What does he think about that? What do you think about that?
Money. It always goes back to money and greed.
Right. I don't know what to say. Does anybody have any comments or anything at all? The fact that people are being turned away, FEMA is confiscating goods, food, supplies. You've got to realize that this is why it's funny how people say, you need to be on this medication for this, that, and the other. And I say no, because if something like that happens, you're dependent on, what if you have asthma and now you're out of your fucking asthma? What is it? What are these called? These things that you have to breathe into, breathers?
Inhaler.
Inhaler. When you're reliant on shit like that and stuff like this happens, you're at the mercy of the need. You need it now. And I can't even imagine what these people are going through. I can't imagine, because now if they need beta blockers, if they need anything, and they were about, I'm going to run out and I'll get it tomorrow. And tomorrow ends up in this moment and they're out of everything they need. And we're not, it doesn't feel like we're getting medical crews, medics from the Navy SEALs or Special Forces. But to me, that would, if I was a president, I would get all my medics from these special forces, Green Beret, and go in to see, what do you need? We have the medicine, we have the insulin, we have the beta blockers, we have the heart pills, we have whatever you need, right? The psycho drugs, SSRI. Why isn't that part of the protocol? Why has not that been put into place where everyone gets on the fucking helicopters, they know what to do, they know their duties, and they get dropped to start finding out who needs what? Why isn't that like protocol? Any idea? I know you're going to say it's money, but is it really money, or is it by design?
So my husband's pretty familiar with how military works, but he was just telling me that the U.S. government is actually not allowed to. What did you say, sweetheart?
You can't use active duty soldiers on U.S. soil.
You can't use active duty soldiers on U.S. soil.
That's what the National Guard's for.
And that's what the National Guard is for, which is ran by the state.
But they send the National Guards from Tennessee. I heard that Tennessee doesn't have National Guards. They've airlifted them out to who knows where. For example.
Yep. You're right. Yep, you said you're right.
So
So then we're just left to defend ourselves, right? And now we're defending ourselves, and FEMA is coming in and saying, no, you can't do that either.
Wow. We live in a very, very, this moment in time in history is probably one of the darkest I think this country's ever experienced, not since the Civil War. Because during World War II, Americans were unified. Everyone knew what to do. And they all moved as one giant power. And that's why they were respected all over the world. But this feels very much like the chaos that would have ensued during the Civil War. What are your thoughts, both of you?
My husband said it reminds him of Vietnam. It's a splitting of the country. And I don't know if we're really... I think we may have been split. I think there's a big push, and I think we're seeing it now of where we're coming together. A lot of information is being spread, and I don't think they're going to be able to stop it. It's just, who are going to be our leaders to lead the groups of people to go there and defend, to rescue, to do all of these things that we need to do. I think the biggest thing that bothered me is that they don't care to recover any of the bodies. None of the bodies. We're talking like thousands of bodies that they're refusing to go in and recover, and I just cannot wrap my head around why.
Right. I don't know. That's a very quick question. I think, to me, I can answer that question. We saw how they dealt with. Remember when they were building the pier to bring aid, supposed aid to the Palestinian people? They built this whole pier, which was never used because they were allowing the blockages of humanitarian aid trucks. I mean, like a convoy of trucks of food, supplies, and so forth was prevented by its citizen, and it was allowed by the soldiers. And so they decided to build a pier, and nothing happened. It was all a fucking just to pacify The Hague, all of the people, all of the countries that are now on the side of the of truth and rightness and humanity. And it was all a joke. I feel like the philosophy of dehumanizing us individually and as a people is part of this administration's overall philosophy. They don't care. We're like ants. What do you do when you want to get rid of ants in your house or on your sidewalk? You flush it down the sidewalk with your hose. Essentially, that's what they're doing, and it's it's in our face. And we have to understand the symbolism because there's a symbolism to that, don't you think?
Oh yeah, I would agree. I mean, not just flooding, but what do you do when you really want to get rid of any type of infestation in your home? You use pesticides.
Exactly.
We know they're doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely symbolism there.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think do you think this country can recover from this? Do you think that what do you think happens after that? If these people are not allowed to help, I know a lot of them are going to help. I know there was again, I don't know where my notes are. I'm so fucking frustrated right now because I'd written it all down. There were phone numbers and notes and whatever. It's on my first live and I had it all organized. But there is a representative. Do you remember the name I mentioned? He's anyway, he is there's a representative. I do remember mystic_poet. No, it was called Whisper. Okay, Whisper_poet. And there's a U.S. representative who says that if any helicopter pilot is being threatened with jail for going in with their own helicopter equipment, by the way, they're not using any companies, their own personal helicopter, if they are being threatened to be arrested to help these people, to contact him and he'll handle it. So last year, okay, got it. So can you elaborate? Elaborate on what? Be more specific. I wasn't looking down. Elaborate on what? What would you like me to elaborate on? But anyway, just if you could type it up and then I'll read it, Jenu. Do you see this country rising to this occasion, or do you see apathy being just what happens? Are we going to watch this just play out and then watch another debacle and another debacle? What are your thoughts?
I'm on the side of unity. I'm hoping the people rise. I really am. That specific area, that group of people, and just seeing the masses just continuously spread. And I've seen a lot of people, personal people going down there. I mean, a lot of people in our area, a lot of companies, a lot of churches, there's a lot. I mean, everyone I know is getting involved. So, but with that being said, what is going to be the push that really gets people to, and again, I don't want to insinuate any violence and I don't condone it, but to almost in a sense bear arms and hold that line to where, because my philosophy is they can't arrest all of us.
Yeah.
So how many people are willing to be the sacrifice to say, okay, we've got 50 people, we've got 100 people, they can't arrest all of us, but are you okay with if you're the one that gets arrested? Because there's a very likely chance, 1 in 100, okay, they could arrest maybe 10 of us. Who are going to be the 10 that rise up and say, I'll go ahead and I'll be the sacrifice for this bigger thing while the 90 go up into the mountains and get these people out. That's where I'm at right now.
Well, I think that's already happening.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I think this helicopter pilot had left behind his family only because he was getting supplies, airlifting people out, and they were going to ground him and saying, yeah, you can't even go after your own family. Can you imagine that? And of course, the guy left, okay? He just took off. I don't think they would have ever attacked his, you know what I mean, by the pews on his health. The fact that we have to use these fucking code words makes me crazy. But anyway, I don't think they were going to do that because that would have been bad press. But it's very interesting how FEMA is something that we should really take seriously as, I don't want to say we should fear it, but we should definitely see it with some apprehension, because they have shown themselves since Katrina that they're not here to help us at all. They never have. Have you ever seen them help anyone? Do you have any memory of them ever helping anyone since Katrina?
I can tell you at the age of 34, I have always heard that if FEMA is near or anywhere around, to not even get involved with them because they're not trustworthy. And it's, I don't know if that's wrapped around because they're a government association, right? And same with the Red Cross. I mean, the Red Cross, you can't even trust them because they're also getting involved with FEMA of saying, we're not helping these people. If they can't get down to us, we're not going to them. And then just the fact that they're stopping, anyone who's trying to aid. And I actually heard that in some of these areas, it wasn't even that FEMA was stopping some of these people, but actually the government within those specific towns, whether it was, law enforcement. I think there was one area that had law enforcement that actually said that if they were going to try and get to any of these people, that they would be apprehended. And I just don't understand where that thought process goes. Or maybe he's thinking, we don't need to try and recoup more bodies, but I don't know. It just blows me away.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the fact that you've got traders, because I mean, if they are actually stopping people from going up and helping their kin, and they are local yokel law enforcement, and they actually have the mendacity to think they're doing the right thing by demanding them to stand down. First of all, that means that you've got some real, they're on the payroll. They're on someone's payroll right off the bat. That's the sign. And the question is, whose payroll, right? Follow the money. And so, one of the viewers are saying, my neighbors are still recovering from Harvey. I'm very rarely at a loss for words, but I have to say that I'm a loss for words. I don't know why is FEMA even a thing? It's funny because there's the FDA, there's FEMA, they're all on the payroll, they're all getting monies, they're a complete way. We've got lobbyists. It feels to me as if we have to pare it down to what we really need. I think we have agencies that are really worthless, and we need to literally pare it all down and retool. Like, I think also, on a side note, since you said that we can't have medics who are a part of the armed forces in active duty, blah, 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 I got it. Okay, respectfully that. What about the Coast Guard? What
about the surrounding areas, having nurses, doctors, surgeons? I mean, there are so many surrounding areas. How far are we, hun, from Asheville? We're about 7 hours from Asheville, I would say. Why aren't we calling in these anywhere else, and saying, okay, we've got a team here, we've got a team there, and these people volunteering their time, and maybe not even volunteering their time. I don't understand why they couldn't go on some sort of payroll. I just don't understand why we don't have any type of emergency, anything in regards to medical assistance. It should not, my husband's saying money, and I have to agree, but it's just, I don't know. It baffles me. It really baffles me, because I'm just like, I haven't seen one video where any medical assistance has been involved whatsoever.
I haven't either. That was shocking to me. And so here, 3 hours ago, they printed an article. Here, I'm going to tell you the fuckery of what's happening with the media. Okay, I'm going to, Newsweek, 3 hours ago. You know what the title of the article is? Trump refused disaster relief until he knew it helped GPO voters ex-aid. They just published it. What does this have to do with today? Because this is about hurricane, or what was it called? Hurricane, whatever, Harvey, right? What happened in, and so he refused aid, right? In 27, supposedly. But what's interesting, until it was, until he realized, okay, yeah, this is really serious what's going on in California. But what's interesting is they're printing that. Did you guys hear that? Did you hear what I'm just saying? So something happened, the hurricane in California that happened in 2017. I forgot when it was, actually, to be honest. But anyway, I think it says here 2017. I'm like reading it right now as we speak, okay? But they printed this article on Newsweek 3 hours ago at 6:37 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Trump refused disaster relief until he knew it helped GPO voters X aid. Can I ask you something? It's 2024, and this happened a few days ago, but they're printing articles and writing articles about what Trump did not do in 2017, but not writing an article about what Kamala just did, what Biden didn't do. The $750 that they're offering to people who qualify. They barely have cell phones. They work. Do you get what I'm saying? So clearly, this is interesting because we have to remember back to Mark Zuckerberg. Is this a rumor, by the way? Just correct me if I'm wrong. Be a fact check here for a minute. When Mark Zuckerberg came out saying that the whole thing about the COVID lockdown, and so how he was, well, what did he say? He was bullied. That's not the word, but I'll use it. Bullied into suppressing all kinds of information about COVID and the VAC. And he came out recently. So now they're trying to again, I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm definitely not a Kamala supporter. I detest that woman. But what I'm going to say is, Trump, why would they write this article about something that happened in 2017 instead of an article about how the fuckery of offering people, if they qualify, whatever that means, for the summer $750? What are they doing? That they are writing about things that are not even current news. They're going into the past. Don't you find that like incredibly disgusting?
It makes me remember there was a hurricane back in Florida. I believe it was in 2020. It had to have been during the election year or something in Florida. And I cannot recall the name of the hurricane, but I had a friend living on the Gulf Coast, and I remember her saying that the hurricane had basically taken out all of the housing in this one area. I don't recall what year this was, but I remember they sent some aid down there, and I think the only reason they got aid because it was a high military family area. But anyway, these people went to go vote, and they couldn't vote because they didn't have a residential address.
Right, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yes, and it just brings me back to that, and I'm thinking, wow, how many people that survived this, and I'm sure they're not even thinking about voting at this point, but it does beg the question of more propaganda of what is the agenda here of them getting rid of all of these voters, because we have to point out the obvious. Those are the areas that have been devastated are Trump supporters.
Exactly. So what they've done in stealing the election, they've devastated communities. I mean, that's basically what you're saying without saying it.
Yeah.
That's heavy. I think we better start having some real conversations. I remember once in France, and again, you guys don't know me, many of you, I'm half French, and I remember there was an election where there was a hiccup, like it was like a mistake. Something happened, and people didn't know if it was a mistake or not. But you know what they did? Because they actually have real election, that means your ballot is actually counted. It's not electoral votes. It's your vote actually counts. It's not electoral. So guess what? It took 1 week to revote. In other words, everyone went back to the ballot and revoted, and the vote was recounted, and then the decision was made as to who was going to take control of France as a president. And I find it interesting that this would happen literally 5 weeks before the election. I find it very interesting. I find it interesting that they are on the agenda of Danielle Weiss, who is one of the, look her up, Danielle Weiss, Weis. Danielle Weiss, map of you know where. Okay, is Izzy, we'll call it Izzy, BB's land. And look up the map. Because right now they're picking a fight with Lebanon, they're picking a fight with Iran, they're picking a fight with Saudi. They want Saudi Arabia. Look up the map, my friends. Look up the map. And you guys, if you know Christians who are all about this shit because they think that's when Jesus is coming, I don't know what, like, I believe in Yeshua, but I don't believe in the Jesus that these Christians believe in, that they would support Geno in that part of the world. But we're seeing the kind of evil that is going to hit us. And we're seeing it with those people in those mountains. We're seeing that they will not treat you any better than they've treated those people in the Middle East. No better. Okay? What they want at any cost. It doesn't matter your color, who you pray to. It doesn't fucking matter. And that's the wake-up call that I hope Americans walk away from this year. Any thoughts on that, my love?
No, I agree. In the very beginning of, the blue and white, and the one particular area in which it started in, when it started, I just could not wrap my head around people that I knew supporting this Geno. I could not wrap my head around it. And I think it started with, they had the right to retaliate. And I remember asking people, if a government came in and told you that you could only have one bottle of water to share for your entire family for a day, for a week, that you'd have no running water, and that you had to ration all of your food, and that you could only have electricity on these specific days, would you not create a group to retaliate? Would you not do that? And within that group, you don't think that there might be some deviant people within that group? Not to say that you're purposefully seeking out these people, but you get a group of 100 men. You don't think a couple of them are going to be deviant and do things that you don't agree with, and then it just causes complete chaos? But you think that the retaliation is justified based off of the mistakes of a few men, that all of these children and women and elderly now have to suffer those consequences and continue to suffer those consequences? Those are the conversations that I've had with my Christian friends to get them to understand that this framework around an eye for an eye, and this framework around, because their Bible, in a book of the Bible, it says that that's okay, that God says that these specific group of people are allowed to be murdered, that's okay, because if God wills it to be, then so be it. That to me is just absolutely sickening. And to be completely honest with you, that's what took me away from the church, is I could not support anyone that supported a God that thought that type of framework was okay. It's not okay with me. And so I beg people to have those conversations and get people to see that that's not an okay way of thinking about your fellow mankind. It's not, in my opinion.
Well, not to mention there were Christians in Palestine. Number one, there were Christians that were actually brutalized. And what we've seen on video many, many times, where Christians go to the wailing wall and they're attacked. So, I mean, I don't know where the fuck what La La Land they live in, but they need to get an education. And that's number one. Number two, let's not forget how Yeshua, because I call him that to honor him and his true stories and his true parables and his true teachings and his true magnificent heart. He had the heart of a lion, still does. But what I see is the bastardization of this man's teachings, which is sickening. It's toxic. So what I will say to you is that there's no way in hell he would ever nod his head to harming the hair on one baby, one child. Never. And this is why the Old Testament and the New Testament, where Yeshua in the New Testament shows up, is much more loving than the Old Testament. And you, Rachel, and I have we don't have theories. We know who wrote it and why and how. And that's a whole different show. It's not appropriate for this one. But I can tell you something. All of you need to get an education, or your Christian friends who actually have been supporting this Geno now see the revolting philosophy and psychopathy that would do that to that part of the world clearly is now doing it to our countrymen and women, right? What do you think? Is now exactly what we're seeing now?
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Any other questions or concerns or anything at all? What do you want to add? What's like your final? Because I don't think we can add to it unless anybody has some news or some tips. I did another live previously, and I'll upload this one too. But I think that we are at a massive crossroad moment where we have to choose honor, integrity, and heart, and unite as the Rainbow Warriors. And racism, religious separation, it needs to be out the window, out the fucking window. And if you are a Christian, I invite you to go ahead and read the Ethiopian Bible. I invite you to read the Torah. I invite you to read the Bhagavad Gita. I invite you to read the Quran. If you really are a Christian and you love Christ, then you would look at all these religions to see what are the connections and the missing puzzle pieces on that. If you really love Jesus, and I'm going to call him again Yeshua, you would study the Gnostic Gospel, the Book of Enoch. You would study all the religions and then come back to introspective understanding of what love and what God created, not just on this planet. Let's not start acting like we're the only ones here on this, this universe. That's just a sign of. That's a sign of I don't know. If you still believe in Father Christmas, then I guess you can believe that we're the only ones on this galaxy, this universe. But with that said, there's a lot more going on, and I think that what's happening is that the veils of illusions about that the American people will be taken care of. The last presidents that loved you and took care of you would be Roosevelt with the new, right? FDR with the New Deal, Truman, Kennedy. Kennedy was, look up this speech that got him, gone. Look him up. He was trying to do the good work, and you saw what happened to him and his brother. I know that Kennedy, when Kennedy was running, had to join forces with Trump because the 1% were going after him, and I kind of know what happened. But Kennedy, right before he joined Trump's ranks, said that he was going to look at setting up the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan was something that his uncle and father had devised to end poverty in America. This was happening in 1963. And they were talking about it, and it was a no bueno, I guess, by the 1%. So you know what happened to those two men. We've little by little. Then after that, you've got Jimmy Carter trying to bring peace to the Middle East, and he was probably one of the most successful presidents to do that, to be honest. I watched it live when he got Egypt and Israel to sit down and sign a peace treaty. I watched it live in the 1970s. I don't know what presidents you think after that were any worthwhile. I mean, I know some of you guys are Reagan followers and you believe Reagan was great. Some of you actually still like Nixon. But when was the last time we had a good? I would say, with all his picadillos, I have to give. And I never thought. I swear to God, this is like shocking the hell out of me. I never thought I would say, you know what? I think Trump really gave a shit. He prevented. You have no idea. He prevented many wars, and I think that if Trump, when October, you know what happened last year. I know that he would have sat down and said, you don't understand, we're not fucking doing this with you. He would have done that. We would not be sitting here looking at the shit show and our coffers being depleted. There's just so much money you can print. After a while, you can't print it anymore. It becomes like paper you can wipe your tuition. Any input on that? On presidents, on where in the hell is these billions coming from? And how long can this continue where we just keep draining our coffers? I heard that FEMA didn't even have $8 billion that was supposed to be in FEMA's accounts was used for the BB team and the Ukrainian team. Any am I correct, Rachel, or did you hear anything else?
No, I think you're right on point. I think you're right on target. Even in the list of presidents, I was sitting there going back. My dad was a Reagan fan, and to be honest with you, I don't know much about Reagan, but I mean, I can tell you that the economy was better with Trump.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I don't remember in the 4 years that he was president, I do not remember being stressed out. I don't remember not being able to take a vacation with my family and just enjoy life. I just, and then if you ever look into him, and I'm sure people have, but he was going around to all of the world leaders and having conversations with them to keep the peace, to remain a peaceful party. And what I think is amazing about Trump, and I'm not, trying to toot his horn or anything, but I think that Trump cares more about the money and the investment in the American people and its economy than making money off of war. That's what I truly think it is with him.
I agree with you because he has sons and he loves them apparently. I mean, when we look at Biden, this is a toxic father with toxic kids. We know this. Even one of his daughters went against him. Kamala has never had children, so she doesn't even know what it's like to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning with a baby with a fever. She doesn't know what it's like to, to do without for your kids. She doesn't know what it's like to miss a meal, to have your electric bill threatened and cut off. I know that for a fact because she's one of my contemporaries in San Francisco, and she climbed the ladders of politics through the bedrooms of politicians, of men that were like 30 years older than her. Okay, that's how she climbed up that ladder. Okay, it wasn't done because she went to Harvard. No matter, and honestly, I really don't like Hillary Clinton at all. Don't get me wrong, but at least the chick went to school and studied. Okay, I mean, Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. When Obama went to school, I mean, all of these people went to school and studied on high level in some of the best universities in America. But with her, crickets. I have no idea where she went. Do you guys know? Because I don't know. I could look it up right now, but I'm not even interested because I know how she went up the ladder, and it's known. People know. So what would you say to women who actually are so hell bent on voting for a female president? And I've noticed that most of the women who are doing that, when you ask them, well, what policies do you think would be great for the country? Crickets. There was one kid who was interviewing women off the streets, lying, coming up with all kinds of weird ass policies as a joke. And these women were blindly agreeing that would be a good policy, not knowing that they had been just had. Any comments or, feedback? And then I'll go into Candace Owen proving, which is what Donald Trump was saying, proving that she's not black. She's not half black. She's not part black. She's not black at all. And if you look at Candace Owens, she's been working for the last 4 or 5 episodes of her show to, again, not a great fan of Candace Owens, but Jesus Christ, you got to look at some of the beautiful energies from various people who see the bullshit on the wall and who are patriots in their own way. Look, I don't believe in Candace Owens. I believe same gender should marry. I'm sorry if that offends you. I don't care if it offends you. But I have to say that with Candace Owens, what we know is that she is looking at the bottom. Janet Jackson was demonized for stating that she wasn't black because Janet Jackson, me, and Kamala are all contemporaries. And so we all remember certain things that many of you who are in your 30s and 40s, you weren't even fucking born when it was happening. And when shit was happening, you were like 5, 6, 7, 10 years old. But we remember because we were there. So I guess what my question to you, Rachel, is what would you say to women who just want to blindly go and vote for a woman, and then and some of it is because, well, she's a black woman and we really need a black one. It's like, what are your thoughts on that?
First, I would say, I think my first question to people who would vote for her is, do you know what are her policies? What is it that she stands for that's so important to you? Mm-hmm. And I would then say, I would rather have a male president with integrity, who's a humanitarian that actually cares about the people, than just voting for someone because of their sex organs. I'm not going to vote for someone just because they're a specific gender, race, whatever. I see people for who they are on the inside, not on the outside. I don't care what color you are or what gender you are. I want to know what your belief systems are. Where are you? Where is your morality? Because when I look at Kennedy, I see a very beautiful humanitarian. He really, really cares about the environment. He cares about the people. He cares about the children. And that's how his entire, everything that he does got started, because he actually cares. And when I look at Trump, there is a little bit of selfish greed there, right?
Absolutely.
But I think along the way, he has had his heart softened. And I think the same with Candace Owens, because, everyone's soul is evolving. And I think Trump realized how much he actually did care about the American people. And because there's pride in that. And he's a very prideful man. And he looks at it as, these are my people. And
Right.
I have to be proud of them.
Right.
And I want them to be strong and healthy and successful. And to him, I think it's like we're all his children. I really think that's how he views the American people. And that is a president that I would rather have, because I couldn't tell you one thing that Kamala has said, done, or stood for that I would say, oh, she's someone I would vote for. There's just not, she hasn't said one thing that's impressed me, not one.
No, I know. And I have to say to you that I remember once a long time, and this is when I was still kind of naive and asleep, and I think I was 30 or 31 when Hillary Clinton was facing like 20 journalists. I'll never forget it, on a chair, facing them, and her explaining how she turned $1,000 into $100,000. Now today I know that was probably a bullshit, talk, but she was brilliant. That's why for a lot of years, many of us had the wool pulled over our eyes, wolf in sheep's clothing, that kind of deal, a narcissist basically. But they're very charming, and they know how to like finesse shit and flip it and turn it. And it's like, it's, you gotta, even enemies who are brilliant, you have to have respect for them. You know what I mean? You respect your enemies. Something in the Kingdom of Heaven, the movie Kingdom of Heaven, it's when they have the Crusade Wars, they respect their foes because they deserve the respect, because they're brilliant. You got to look at people who are intelligent. And so far, Kamala Harris, I'm looking at her education on Wikipedia, and I'm just going to be straight up here. There's a picture of supposedly her father teaching a class, 1974, you'll see it, and he's got an afro. Now, the thing about this timeline that we live in is that we know that anything can be changed, can be manipulated, and Wikipedia is not exactly the place we need for real information, because it can be controlled, it can be edited at will by any force. We know that, right? I mean, the fact that people actually think real information is on Wikipedia is almost scary. But the point is, here I see that, but then when I look at Candace Owens' show, you may want to look her up on YouTube and really take your time to listen what she's saying. At the end of the day, let me put it this way to you guys. At the end of the day, I don't care what color she is. To me, it has nothing to do with any race at all. To me, she's actually, what's important to me is I would, at this point, if I was going to be hell-bent on voting for a woman, I would vote for Jill Stein, because when Marcus Williams was, where they found that there was DNA evidence that he was never there, and they found a connection between the current governor and the reporter that was unalivened because she was doing some research on his wheeling dealing, the governor, the current governor, who was a sheriff at the time, owning gas stations, that he was adding alcohol, or in other words, he was doing all kinds of fuckery, and she was actually investigating that. And that, so there would have been a reason. But anyway, my point to that is Jill Stein was actually calling to try to influence a stay of execution. Trump didn't do it. Kamala definitely didn't do it. Kamala has a history of being very unfair and throwing the book at men of color and various men, black, white, red, purple, whatever. She's got a prosecutor's mind. probably the most chilling thing I saw her say, most chilling, was when she thought she was smart doing that. When she said, "From the flick of my pen, I could write, I could, incarcerate an innocent person. It would take 2 weeks to get out and prove your innocence, but I would have ruined your job, ruined your life, ruined this from the flick of my pen. And so there's so much power in the flick of this pen." And so she's highly aware of the power, and yet she has done nothing to stop a Geno. She's done nothing to rally the forces. She has not actually suited up to go at her age. She's young enough to do this. Put on hip boots and go wading in the water. A lot of people are claiming that picture of Trump is AI. That picture that you're seeing is AI. But I happen to see the actual video of him walking in the water. See, that's the thing. That's the thing with the technology we're dealing with right now. So I actually saw walking in the water, hugging people in Georgia, doing this, talking, this and that. But then they came out with the eye. Now they're coming up with articles about what he did on a disaster that happened in 2017. What I'm trying to say is do not get played. At this point now, in the Trump camp, we have Kennedy, who's an environmentalist, who realizes that our food is poison and he wants to change that. And then we have Tulsi Gabbard, who has actually served in war zones, okay? And she's a devotee of God. She adores God. I know that for a fact. And I have my own, I know people who know her personally, okay, who grew up with her. So it's not like I'm coming out of that out of my butt. And so you've got at least two people that are very, very strong. They're going to, push against anything that they feel is unwise with Trump. They're not his yes men. So the fact that Trump said yes to two personalities that are as big as his, it says a lot about how he has softened and how he wants to create a legacy for his children and grandchildren. And then they're telling me, I'm just gonna be straight up, and they're in particular Barron, his son Barron, his last son. So I agree with you. How do you think Tulsi Gabbard and Kennedy is going to, balance everything out? Do you think they have that kind of ability to stop him if he's too, impulsive? Though I don't think he's impulsive, but if he gets too angry, do you think they'll have the influence?
I think multiple people have influence. One thing I do like about Trump is even though he is very prideful, and I've seen it, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but there has been a lot of growth with him. And same with Candace Owens, because I've followed Candace Owens for, I would say 4 years. I think it's been 4 or 5 years now. And there's been a massive growth with her. And I don't agree with her on everything, but I think she's brilliant. And same with Trump. I think there's both of them have had a lot of things that have humbled them. And so they're people, and Candace used to be one that would really, you would strike a nerve with her and she would really just immediately start talking about it, where now I think she kind of takes a step back and she analyzes it first and then she goes in and talks about it. And so I think if I were to put Trump in that same scenario, I think he takes a step back now. I think he analyzes, and there are people around him. I think Kennedy, Tulsi, I even think his wife and his sons play a huge role in of them saying, let's step back and look at this. And then let's tackle whatever it is we need to tackle and speak about whatever it is that we need to speak about versus being irrational. Trump has never striked me as an irrational mover. I think he's very strategic in the decisions that he makes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel as if what right now we are being dramatically awakened as an American people. I think we are at a crossroad moment where courage, bravery, generosity, non-racist attitude is going to be the very heart and soul of our own deliverance from this hamster wheel of fuckery that's been going on for decades, okay? And the divide and conquer and the fuming and anger and jealousy and frustration, like Gary Newsom came up with, and they approved it, $125,000 grants for immigrants to buy homes. Now, you and I both know there's never been a grant that big. At most, the grant's been like maybe $25,000 to $35,000, and you had to qualify with a FICO of 680 or 7, right? But what's interesting is that these immigrants don't have a FICO score, but they're going to get $125,000 to help them get a house, and they've never. Do you realize that they're trying to just piss us off, right? To the point where we'll actually rise like a giant rage of uncontrolled, chaos. Do you see that?
I was literally just thinking that, and what it's doing is it's instilling more hate, because then you have, the American people, like I said in the beginning, that will instill a type of racism and hate towards a specific group of people, being whatever immigrant they're bringing in right now, and we see that as people coming across the border, right, or a specific group of people, and they will instill that hate, and it's that type of fuckery. This is what it is. It's just more insinuation of hate. And what we need to be doing is taking that, and instead of hating the group of people, we need to be focusing that energy on the people who came up with the policy. Because I can tell you, when we bought our house, I think we were in it depends on your state too, of like what grants they offer. I don't remember any federal grants or anything of that nature when we were buying our house, but each state is different. So like if we were to have bought a house in Maryland, we could have gotten a $25,000 grant to go towards the down payment. And I know that if people know about FHA, which is government backed, and USDA, which is also government backed. But
but let me cut you off. That's my point.
Yeah.
I'm talking about $125,000. If you buy a house in California for $300,000, which is up in the country, right? And they're giving you 125 out of 300, right? And they're going to approve you. It's like a done deal. Apparently they're going to approve you, or else, because I'm sorry, but immigrants aren't coming in with the FICO and all of that. So they're financing. So that means that what's going to be financed is 175, right? And
Right.
off the cuff, they're financing it with absolutely no history of anything that FICO scores and Americans and what they go for is happening, right? So what they're doing is, I'm not even sure it's going to happen. I know my son said something brilliant. He said, well, eventually they won't be able to make the payments, and they'll the houses will be taken over by a BlackRock, because BlackRock, Vanguard, they're buying up houses all over the country.
Yep, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Exactly. So it's almost like, again, it's like stealth shit. It's like stealth shit that 5 years later, or 10 years later, you go, oh, that's what they were up to all along. You're right. So I guess, but what's happening, the damage of that is that it's making people so pissed off that they're putting their attention on the immigrant problem instead of realizing, or putting all eyes on the government, the current administration, that has done absolutely nothing. I've never seen anything like it in my entire. I've lived here fucking too long, but I've never seen a country fall this quickly under 4 years of one administration. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I mean, it's a complete implosion. Right? What are your friends saying? I mean, listen, there was a guy on Walmart, right? And in 2022, do you remember that guy? And he had his cart, and he had bought $125 worth of food for 2 weeks of food. And he said, what the fuck? Let me just add all this shit back in my cart and let me see how much it would be. It was like $415. So in 2 years, it tripled. Meanwhile, the administration got picked up, really pissed off when Tucker Carlson went to Russia, and they all threw in food for 2 weeks, and they were sure it was going to be $450. This is something I just did yesterday, by the way, on groceries, and there was $100, $107, something like that, and they were in shock in Russia. So there are countries there are governments that actually take care of their people, and they regulate prices, gas prices, food prices. They regulate the quality of food. In other words, GMO is not allowed, or if it's allowed, it's labeled. Things of that nature, right? So it almost feels like we have a system that actually hates our guts, and we're we're under threat and under their moods, whatever their moods are. They could literally just hijack our kids and send them to foreign countries to perish on foreign lands. What world does Russia take care of their people? Victoria Blanchard, do some research, because they have a clinic for fasting. It's free, and you can actually go to the government if you're sick, and they will let you fast. And they will take care of you and do blood tests every day, for example. The fact that they actually have grocery prices that are affordable, rental prices that are affordable, clean cities. I mean, they went through hell to get to this place, but they're there. They're there. And all you have to do, instead of being brainwashed by whatever you were taught, which I was too, by the way, I was totally not pro Russia at all. And I'm not pro Russia. I'm not pro anything. I'm pro kind, generous government. As for narcissists, I think you made the comment, or somebody made a comment, that narcissists can't ever find out that they're wrong. Well, let me just say this. I've studied narcissism for over 10 years. And if you want to study narcissism, go to Sam Vatkin, a triple PhD, okay? Who actually lives in Israel, by the way, on a side note. But he's brilliant. He's a brilliant professor. He knows his shit, and he's a self-proclaimed malignant narcissist. Narcissists, there are levels of narcissism, and some narcissists do have empathy, do care, and can heal. They can heal. And the process of healing for a malignant narcissist is a therapy system called cold therapy. It's using childhood therapy techniques to treat a narcissist, because a narcissist didn't become a narcissist as a grown man or woman. It happened when they were children. So normal adult therapy doesn't work. So you have to use childhood therapy techniques, and that works. And the man's brilliant. He's got a triple PhD. He was at 12 years old. He was going to university. So I would trust him over anyone else in terms of that kind of knowledge. So narcissists can heal when they want to. And some people are so sick of being alone and being left. And after a while, some people do clue in. And we are going through a massive spiritual awakening, on the side note, where egos are being ground to dust. And ego is connected to narcissism. It's not the soul that's a narcissist. It's the ego that's a narcissist. We also have to remember that, right? Anything you want to add to that, or anything else?
I want to go back to the Russia comment, because I have a friend whose husband was married to a Russian woman, and they actually went back to Russia because it's so bad here. She was baffled at how the American people were treated by their government, by the leaders. And she begged her husband to go back, and they finally went back under this administration. But one thing I will give Putin is that he loves his people. In Russia, they have underground bunkers to bunk every single citizen with food, enough to supply them with food, water, toiletries, medical assistance. And they went back, and I haven't talked to her in probably almost a year, and they were thriving the last I heard. So,
well, I had a cousin that was going to Russia as a chef in French. My cousin's French, and he went to Russia in the 1980s when it was still under, interesting, control and government. But he did do it, and he ended up marrying a Russian woman. He has Russian sons, and he was thriving. I'm sorry, I was brainwashed by this system as well, and I have to say that I've heard really good things. And when Tucker Carlson went there, I think it pissed a lot of Americans off, and a lot of Europeans that were under this fear factor of what Russia was, not what Russia is. So now we have to look at what Russia is, not what it was, what it is today, right now, compared to us. Let's stop the bullshit. Let's stop trying to be so arrogant that we can't learn shit from other countries and their leaders. Let's stop the bullshit. I'm so sick of this false arrogance. That's narcissistic, actually, not to want to learn from other countries, how they govern their people, how their people are thriving. In Finland, the people are happier than we are. They have 32-hour work weeks. They have paid parent leaves for women and children. Meanwhile, our women are treated like they're fucking dogs. Let's stop I am so sick of this arrogance that you think we're the best. Start educating yourself on other countries and find out why these people are happy here and happy there. Not everyone wants to come here. I have a friend who actually told me that they had an acquaintance that actually walked all the way from South America to here, stayed 1 month in LA, and fucking walked his ass back to his country. You tell me why he would do that if it was so good. We better be honest, because if we're not honest, this thing that's happening in the Appalachian Mountains will continue and continue and continue. Okay? I'm done here. Any comments? Because this arrogance is why we're here. We need to look at best practices of governing and then demand our leaders, these fake narcissistic people that only we have lobbyists who control this. Do you guys understand? And actually, I'm not talking to you guys. I'm talking to this woman. Do you understand that we have lobbyists that have their own agendas that basically corrupt our senators to their own agendas, their own needs, their own laws that destroy our parks, nature, our ecosystem, our food? Monsanto is outlawed in Europe. Did you understand that? Roundup is outlawed. It's outlawed, and yet it's still here at Home Depot being sold. And it's causing the big C to people. Now there are lawsuits being waged. It's still sold, knowing that it's killing our bee population, which we need if we're going to actually have food on the planet. The Germans knew that 15 years ago. And that's when it was a domino effect of outlawing, for example, Roundup. Because bees were dying on the Rhine River within I think it was within 48 hours of what the fuck's going on here? All the bees are dead. So we need to look at best practices of governing, of creating some kind of method of control for everything if you want to have a government. But if you're going to have a government that's going to go rogue on its own people, that's a problem, don't you think? Isn't that common sense? I would think that would be common sense. You know what I mean? Your thoughts there on that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I say this all the time, that I think the most narcissistic comment that I could ever hear people say is that we're the best. This is the best country to be in. We're the best. Everyone wants to come here. I almost laugh every time someone says that, because my initial thought process is, how do you know that we're the best? Have you ever lived anywhere else? Have you ever traveled outside of this country? Because those are things that for you to be able to say that we're the best country, you would have to have lived in at least 2, not just one, but 2 other countries for you to say that this country is the best. And to me, that is a very indoctrinated, narcissistic mindset.
I agree.
So I agree.
I agree. And if it was, and that's not to say this country can't become one of the best. Okay, I think it's a great flex to say we are one of the best countries in the Western world. I think that's a great flex to aspire to. But let's not gaslight ourselves and say we are the best, because we lost many authors who were African Americans who had to leave this country because it was unsafe for them, and they went to France and they went to Italy and London to write their books because they weren't safe to be here. Okay, let's be real about what has led us to this moment. And we were so busy fighting each other over BS that every 4 years we got to see more and more corrupt leaders take power, more and more, until now we're looking at the lesser of 2 evils. The only thing I can say about Trump is at least he's got 2 people who I think are really radical, who are really cool, who I think really, really want to do good for this country. I think they're patriots. I really do. I think the word patriot is really loosely used quite often, but I think that we're in good hands. You know what I mean? And I think I'm looking at Vance. He looks like he should. I don't know. I'm not getting a vibe that he's probably. I think he's a hard ass. But I think also that I don't think he'd be a good choice. God, I hope nothing happens to Trump. Is all I gotta say, because I'm not sure Vance would be as calm and as what is the word I want to use, as successful in diffusing a war like I've seen Trump do. Okay, Trump is a man of few words when it comes to. There's a famous story of him, right? Maybe you can expound on it, Rachel, where he literally has his aide show a picture to this particular person on a country, and for 18 months, none of the American troops were harmed because he showed this man something, and that man understood the message from the picture. And the message was, I know where you live. Don't fuck with me or my people. It was that simple. That was the message. Now, I admire that kind of leadership because it's a man of few words, and the guy got the message and made sure that not one hair on our service women and men's head were touched, harmed in any way. Sorry. And guess what? We were never in conflicts. We've been in conflicts, and now it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Iran decides to respond, and here we are. Meanwhile, we have our men and women up in the Appalachian Mountains dehydrating, and many of them, God, I hope not, may need medicine, life-saving medicine. Vance is a slimy politician. His vernacular gives it away. Okay, but Kamala's brilliant, right? Kamala, who's actually gone and done speeches drunk, she's way better. At this point now, if you guys as a people had demanded on a third party slot, because personally me, if I could get Jill Stein in, that would be my choice. Personally me, okay? That's me personally. But since we all know that that's not going to happen because there was complacency in the American mind to allow a two-party system to go on forever, where in Norway they have 7 parties. In France, I think they have 5 or 6 parties. So the complacency of having just 2 parties shows a laziness, an apathy, okay? So now it means that we all have to roll up our sleeves and start demanding changes. No more lobbyists, no more electoral votes, shit like that. You know what I mean? So that your vote actually counts. Any feedback? Anything you want to share, Rachel?
No, I agree with almost everything that you've said, I agree with, because we have to look at the people that are standing next to Trump. I don't like to say behind Trump, but next to Trump as a collective. It's not just Trump. He's got a really good team. And you know me, Kennedy gets my vote all day, every day. And that's who I was going to vote for. So, if he's got a really good team, and so for me, it's a no-brainer. I don't see anyone on Kamala's side that could stand next to her and sway my vote. It's almost like it's just her. Like, I mean, I saw the debate between Vance and her vice presidential pick, and I can't think of his name right now. And I'm not really a Vance fan, but with the other people that he has between Tulsi and Kennedy, and I'm a Milani fan. His wife behind him, yeah. And then his sons. I think as a team, as a unit, for me, it's just a no-brainer. I mean, Kamala's not a family person. She's not a people person. She doesn't give a crap about this this nation at all. I think it's all about money for her and power, and I think she'll throw us all under the bus just to get what she wants. So
she will actually throw us under the bus. Absolutely. Again, don't forget Roe versus Wade. Okay, the removal of our rights and autonomy over our reproductive system was under her watch, not Trump's. Her watch. Don't ever forget that, women out there. Okay, I love being a woman. I love having sisters like Rachel and other goddesses and high priestesses who are badass, okay? But I don't like bimbos. I don't like Barbies and bimbos who play this game of they're not going to actually blame her for what happened. OAC should have fought against it. This thing should have been a fight, and it should have never passed. So the fact that it has passed has already cost many innocent women their very fucking lives. It was under her watch, not Trump's, not Obama's, not any of the other presidents. It was under her watch. Okay? And the reason why she doesn't care, because I've heard a lot of boomers say that, a lot of stupid women say that, boomers saying, well, I don't know, I don't care, I'm never going to get pregnant. Yes, I understand, lady, you're never going to get pregnant, so you don't have to worry about it. But your son may get a girl pregnant. Your daughter may get pregnant if she's harmed, raped. And now she's stuck with that trauma. Okay? So that was a very important 10 steps back in the history of the autonomy of a woman's body under Kamala's watch. I will never give this woman for that. I can't forgive her. Your thoughts on that? Because this is beyond. And I'm not talking about late term abortions, okay? Because there's no question that that's bullshit, okay? It's absolutely we all know that. But within a 12 weeks window, if you can't afford it, you should be able to get it. Okay? The 24 hours after, what is it, that pill called? I forgot what it's called, but I was like, when I was young, I couldn't wait till something like that came out. I can't understand how women can actually seriously not put the blame on her for Roe versus Wade. You're again, that's why we know she doesn't give a shit about us. I mean, that's it. You're anything you want to say?
I agree, and there's so much. I feel like there's a little bit of complexity around it, because I think when Trump did that, I think he really didn't want there to be like a federal involvement. I think he really wanted the people to have the involvement, meaning I think he anticipated the people to be able to take back the power of the bodily autonomy and the rights to it. And I think that in some of those states, it just did not go the way that I think that they anticipated it to go. And I used to say, live in a state that, and I actually, I will still say this, live in a state in an area that resonates with your belief systems. Because if you're living in a state that doesn't resonate with your belief systems, why are you staying there? There are many, Maryland is a big state. And we know California, and we've kind of talked about this privately, where there needs to be common ground. There has got to be common ground. I do not believe in late-term abortions. I'm with you on that one, Tony. But I do believe that there needs to be choice. Obviously there are things that happen. I'm a miscarriage mama. I lost a son in the second trimester, and I had to have a DNC. Would I be penalized for that now, living in Texas?
Yes, you would.
So this is where it gets mucky. It gets really mucky, and we have to come together collectively, I feel, to figure out what is it that we want collectively. Because I would love to think that the majority of people do not agree with late-term abortion. But here we are with states like California and New York that have said the baby can be 3 days old. The baby can be, we've talked about this, Tony. They were paying women in New York City to have late-term abortion so that body could be donated to science.
That's sick.
So that body could be used to create jabs. That's sickening to me.
No, that is sickening. And let me just say, Victoria said Trump put in the Supreme Court justice that succeeded in overturning Wade. Let's go back, okay? Let's stop the BS. Let's look at where the mentality of what we're doing in terms of who is the ninth justice. So let me look real quick. There are two women in the current Supreme Court, Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan, and we have, of course, the infamous Clarence Thomas. I actually watched the comment of the can of Coca-Cola with the little hair on it. Okay, I remember watching that whole debacle when it was happening. So you've got two women, you've got an African American man, and then the rest. Okay, that leaves 4 other men. And you're telling me that these two women couldn't fight this? No, because we have a lot of women. Okay, this is where we're going to have to get honest about the difference between some feminine mindsets and philosophies and other feminines. I simplify by calling them bimbos and Barbies. And the reason I say that is because, not to denigrate all feminines, but there are women who honestly believe in certain things. Let's not forget, we have a history of toxic matriarchy. It's not just toxic patriarchy, it's toxic matriarchy. It's women who actually denigrated other women who are more free. These are the same women who accuse other women of being witches, being burned at the stakes. Let's not forget we have a history of very toxic women who were jealous, who don't care, who have very weird ideas about how women should be, how should they act. I don't want to get into any religious backgrounds on this in terms of what religion really promotes certain women that are very toxic and narcissistic in their attitude about their own female sex. But we do have a problem. We better get really real. It's not just the masculines who are messing up women. It's also a lot of women who have these weird toxic ideas that support the toxic patriarchy. So let's not blame Trump. Okay, because when I look at this situation, I'm looking at two women. I'm like, I don't understand. So here are these two. What they couldn't argue the point. They couldn't. Did we ever hear the arguments? Were the arguments ever massively posted? Did we see female senators fighting the good fight? Let's be honest about how we got here. Because as long as we keep gaslighting ourselves and pointing fingers to one archetypal example of something that's easy to hate, Trump being one, for example, we're making a massive mistake. We're off the plot. We're not getting the linear aspect of the story. It isn't complicated. Why is it that women don't understand my body, my choice? Why is it women that don't understand that if a 9-year-old gets raped, it could be, it's probably a good idea not to ever have go through a full pregnancy. For one, her hips are too narrow. For two, it could actually unalive her, right? Isn't that common sense? But we have women supporting this idea. So let's stop blaming certain things and let's start blaming these toxic sisters of ours who actually don't understand that it's none of their business what I do with my body. It's none of their business if I'm gay, if I'm straight, if I want to marry a woman, if I want to marry, it's none of their goddamn business. You want to follow God, then follow God. But a God that would have created all these diversities of desires and thoughts and so forth that are good, that don't harm other people. I don't mean people that harm children. I don't mean people that create wars. I don't mean those people. I mean people who just want to have their life and grow their tomatoes in the garden and leave them the fuck alone. It's that kind of, those people, right? Okay, well, we don't have a right to narcissistically tell people and blame people when something got fucked over. Roe versus Wade was the writing on the wall. It was very similar to when they were starting to blow up the Buddhas in Afghanistan. For me, that was the beginning of the end. I went, holy shit, it's about to get real. I think it was 1991 and 1992. I forgot. It was in the early 90s. So we have to follow the trail. We have to connect the dots. Okay, I'm blaming Trump because he put the overtly conservative overturning Roe was a conservative ideal. I agree with that, but it was also led by women. You got. This is what I think we don't understand. It's led by women. How can women betray little girls that are dealing with SA'd abuse? And at some point, they're going to get pregnant. Why did these women not think of the whole trauma that's going to happen to a woman who's been GANG raped and may have? These women are so blind and concerned. I'm sorry. I'm going to blame the collective feminine, who is, as you call it, conservative. I will call it toxic. I will call it what it is. It's not conservative. It's toxicity. Okay? And I don't care who they follow, who they pray to. But when you are that judgmental, you are no better than the women who were accusing women of being witches and smiling while they got burned at the stakes. No different than that, in my humble opinion. And I guess I'm not trying to be humble. It's about power and their seats in power. Well, then we have some sickos. Because, we have women who are actually talking about Kamala Harris as the next Margaret Thatcher. Now, if you know anything about Irish history at all, and when somebody, I want to throw up in my mouth, because you've got women in their 30s and 40s that are so uneducated, really, almost woefully, purposefully ignorant, that they would make a comment like that. It should make you shake in your boots. Study Margaret Thatcher. And you will start crying, going, what the fuck? And so everyone, oh my God, it's another Margaret Thatcher, another powerful woman. Women that are leaders that have no compassion are as dangerous as men who are leaders who are not compassionate. What's between your legs doesn't make you a good leader. What's in your heart makes you a great leader. And that's it. And I think we better stop having these gender wars of divide and conquer. We need to stop gender wars, race wars, homosexual, homophobic wars. We need to stop this shit. Some of the, in fact, many of you don't even know the history. Some of the greatest warriors ever, they're famous. They're called the Band of Thebes. They were called the Band of Thebes. Thebes. Bes. Thebes. The Sacred Band of Thebes. Look it up right now on your computers right now. They were a special force like the Navy SEALs and the Green Berets of Greece. And the king of that time, I forgot his name, in Thebes, had devised the idea that if male warriors who loved each other as lovers became like, partnered as a special force team, that they would actually be the most fearsome team on the planet. And guess what? They were. It was 24 couples. They would, and they survived 48 years until Philip of Macedon and his men fought them, and they all perished. They all perished. And Philip of Macedon, and this is a story. They said that he asked, "Where are they? Show me where they are." And he came upon them, and they were some of them were still dying, and they were on top of each other. They were a fierce band, and they say that he saw the last one take his last breath, and he wept. They were famous, they were respected, and they were gay. Okay? And this is studied in West Point. Okay? Alexander the Great's father, Ms. Philip of Macedon. So we need to stop being homophobic. And a guy that wants to wear a dress and high heels, that's more feminine, clearly doesn't want to go in a war. But you got badass men who really like men. I'm sorry, and they're great warriors. So I think this concept of ignorance that has been purposely done to dumb us down as a people, to divide and separate us again and again and again, is a toxic, narcissistic game of divide and conquer that's been quite successful. Because here we are, we've got people stuck in the mountains. We've got law enforcement stopping people from helping their own kin, their own family, their own children, their own grandparents. We've got soldiers that are being ready to be deployed to the Middle East and being told, no, you can't go save your family, but we're going to ship you out to the Middle East. There's something wrong here. And everything we've discussed now brings us to this point in history. Every single thing we've discussed so far. Any thoughts on that, my love?
No, I think you articulated everything beautifully. I agree. I agree.
All right. Yes, how can women betray women and girls across the nation? Good question, Victoria. That's a great question. How can they? How can they? If you want to be a trad wife, if you want to be a Mormon wife, and you want to be one of 15 women, that's your fucking business. That's your fucking business. But you don't tell me what I'm going to do with my womb, and you don't tell, especially if I've been raped. Especially if I've been raped, okay? Or especially if this could cost me my life because it was a mistake, something happened, and I'm not supposed to, because if I do, I won't survive the pregnancy. You see? And when women need to now in late-term abortion and what you've just shared with us, Rachel, you're a doula, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so we all agree on that there's something wrong with that. Okay, we all agree on that. And I don't want to get slammed, but there's things I could tell you about what happened to the Tibetan people and ABROTIN vans that were happening in the 90s by the government that took over, that country and late term. The concept of late term when a child is born is pure evil, just on sight. It's just pure evil. And any woman that actually sits there and can talk herself into thinking this is okay is emotionally, there's something wrong with her. I'm just going to say there's something wrong with saying, yeah, well, I gave birth, but it's not alive. We terminated The pregnancy, no, that's not termination of pregnancy. At that point, it's termination of life. Okay. If you are having sex and you know that you're not using contraception or protection or whatever, then it's your responsibility to make sure that you don't wait fucking past 12 weeks. I'm sorry. The only thing that would actually mitigate that from preventing someone is money to have the procedure. It's usually poverty. And we should have that in place where it's just, you can't afford it. There it is. But the thing about Planned Parenthood and the agenda behind it and the pure evil behind it is, again, don't you see we're cleaning house? We're getting rid of all these evil entities. We're getting rid of all these companies. Many of you should be looking at these sea societies that still can't find a cure, and when they do, somehow it disappears. We'll hear on TikTok or Instagram somebody has found a cure for blah blah blah, and suddenly we hear nothing about it for decades, and we're like, wait, didn't they say they found a cure for pancreatic C, and now the person's disappeared? A lot of this shit's by design, and we need to wake up to it. It's not conspiracy theories, though. To be honest with you, I have great admiration for anyone that can actually theorize, that can actually look at something and go, let me see if there's something that is wrong, meaning is there a conspiracy here, and let me theorize why that would be a benefit to these people, who it would benefit, and why this is a win-win for them. That shows an intelligent person, and that should no longer be a put down. I think we should all get our t-shirts out and our tinfoil hats and start parading around going, we're changing the system. I'm sorry. I feel like this is a crossroad moment that's going to change, I hope, change the consciousness of our country and bring a lot of brotherhood and sisterhood. And we need to start calling people out on their bullshit and go, you have no right to, if you want to live this way, it's not my right to tell you that's wrong, but it's not your right to tell me what I want is wrong either. It all needs to end. And until we can actually accept our differences, we're going to be in this kind of situation. Anyway, last words, my friend. I know that you have to go.
I think, again, just eloquently, stated, and just being around women. And I will tell you that years ago that I was a very anti-abortion.
Gotcha.
Just having talked with women who have been in the birthing game way longer than I have, and having these types of conversations are what changed my framework. It's what changed my way of thinking, and so we have to have them as women, because we're in my line of work. I'm going to come across women who need the support, who need to have someone there when they need to make these types of decisions that are not easy. But what I also want to say is that as women, you have got to get in tune with your body. There is a term for women who go into the second and third trimester, who do get their menstrual cycles, who don't know that they're pregnant. But if we could become more in tune with our cycles, following the moon and following and making sure that our cycles are healthy and understanding what a healthy cycle is, as well as a healthy sex life, I don't think we would see abortions in the numbers that we're seeing them. I don't. Now that, again, I agree that there are situations of rape, obviously, and there are also situations of abnormalities. There are situations of unviable fetus, right?
Right.
But when it comes to knowing your body as a woman, it is so important. I want women to know when they're pregnant at 5, 6, 7 weeks. And if they're in a situation where they're 5, 6, 7 weeks, and they can, take a pill and that be it, want to support them doing that. I don't want them to get into scenarios where they're second trimester, third trimester, especially in the worst case scenarios of how they got there.
Right.
But I really want women to be in tune with their bodies. I want women to know that there are resources for contraceptives, there are resources to get birth control, sponges, female condoms. Like there's, it's not just it's a whole world. Again, I had said earlier, I think it's more complex than,
No,
you know,
I,
just owning, you know, having the right. It's also honoring the body,
I,
understanding the body as a female.
well, but the thing is, for a woman to be in line with her body, she needs to eat pure foods, not GMO foods, not garbage, not things with plastic, not things that that basically collide with your balance and hormone. I know that many women go through massive stress, and they have menses that last like months, they won't stop. And part of it is nutrition, part of it is stress. I think honestly, as women, we need to support women and make sure that, like in many European countries, and you guys know this, I hope you guys know this, that they give you a stipend of like between $300 to $600 a month for the first 3 years of the child. Some countries for the first 5 years of the child. That would be, a lot of women are taking second jobs because they have to pay for daycare. In many European countries, the daycare free, and they're good daycares. There's cameras, there's protection. You don't have to worry about your child showing up one day in ER because of baby shaken syndrome and being and now being damaged, their spine damage, their neck damage, or other damages because they've been, harmed in other ways. There are there are protocols and things that support family values. We talk about family values, but our governments have never in this country really shelled out the money that assists people to enjoy the concept of family values. It's a word, but it's not a reality. And so I think these crossroad moments that we're finally at, this is the precipice. We're looking down at the ravine going, yeah, we can't go any further because this is no longer going to be okay. So food, outlawing certain pesticides, outlawing certain things that are not kind to the environment and to you as human beings and to your children. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but all I have to say to you is Erin Brockovich. That's all I have to say. Erin Brockovich. And there are microplastics and things of that nature that will mess up your brain, mess up the way you think, your ability to have energy to get things done, and apathy starts becoming your new normal. And I think that when you talk about reproductive system and the kindness of a government that allows women to be cared for is something that we have to demand, because it's not going to bring itself in. It's clearly Roe versus Wade being overturned is not going to fix itself. And so we have to really demand from our senators right before we start voting, are you going to help bring it back? And we need to ask a lot of questions. Are you going to do family leave acts that are paid by the government? Because they sure as shit can pay those immigrants money. So that means that they can pay you if you're taking care of a beloved in hospice care at home, that you would get your salary sent to you every month until your person passes, and grief time. I'm sorry, we need a kind system, because this system is absolutely evil. It's unkind to its people. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all of you. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Nick. And much love to you all, and I'll upload this to the YouTube channel, and hopefully you'll check it out, and please leave some comments or whatever. And the first one that I did had a lot of information about who to contact and so forth if anything goes wrong, and the details are there on the first video. I've just uploaded it on my YouTube channel, which is Sacred Intimacy Tarot. You can check it out. Okay, Rachel, thank you so much for your time. I'll call you after this.
Thank you for having me.
All right, namaste. Be well.
Be well.